Coming up in today's newscast, the Israeli military has just launched an airstrike against Hamas in retaliation for kite-bomb attacks. Israelis get a front row seat to the first 3 days of the Giro De-Italia cycling race. And mothers-to-be, get ready because new Israeli tech will soon allow you to start doing ultrasounds with your cell phone, wherever and whenever you want. The Israeli army has just spotted 3 Palestinians attempting to breach the security fence in Gaza and enter Israeli territory. Forces have already responded with gunfire and thwarted the would-be infiltration, and at this time, 2 of the suspects have been killed in the crossfire. This is only the latest in a long series of attempted infiltrations by Gazans in recent weeks. This type of activity has been commonplace throughout the Hamas-sponsored March of Return rally, which just concluded its 6th weekend. For now, there is no word on whether or not the attempted infiltrators had weapons on them or whether they intended to carry out terror once inside Israel. The army has reported several cases of Gazans breaching the border purposely to get caught because they prefer life in an Israeli prison over the Hamas-ruled Gaza Strip. But the use of gunfire in this case would suggest that the specific incident was actually motivated purely by terrorism. Well, for the 6th weekend in a row, like we said, thousands of Palestinians in Gaza have erupted into violent riots along the security border, clashing with IDF troops. And as we've seen in recent weeks, Palestinians have been using kites to fly in firebombs over the border and burn Israeli fields. And now, for the first time, the army has actually just launched airstrikes against a Hamas military site in the Strip, all in retaliation for these kite attacks. At this time, hundreds of Palestinians are said to have been injured in this latest round of clashes. The IDF, however, has just released some rather telling footage in which supposed injured Gazans can be seen faking their injuries. The video footage also accuses rioters of purposely bringing small children dangerously into the fray. The Hamas-sponsored March of Return protest has been raging for nearly 6 weeks now. The terror group originally claimed these would merely be peaceful sit-ins, but Israel sees it as an obvious cover for terror and has responded to countless attempts by Gazans to either destroy or breach the security barrier and infiltrate Israeli territory. Israel has faced intense criticism for its use of lethal force to contain these clashes, but a new ruling from Israel's High Court has just declared these clashes as an official state of war, meaning the typical laws governing human rights don't apply. At this time, over 40 Palestinians, including 2 teenagers and 2 journalists, have been killed by Israeli bullets. 6 Palestinians were actually just killed in an explosion likely caused by their own explosive devices misfiring. With the protests set to coincide with the opening of the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem in less than 10 days, Israel is bracing for what could be a very bloody showdown. President Trump has made no secret of the fact that he disapproves of the JCPOA nuclear deal with Iran. The president has threatened to withdraw from the deal by the end of the week, but without a plan B, it may not be as easy as it sounds. In a shocking reveal, we've also just learned that the White House actually hired a private Israeli intelligence firm in an effort to get dirt on some of the deal's chief negotiators. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here with more on this.
Thanks, Natasha. And yeah, if true, this would certainly be a somewhat disturbing move by Team Trump. And anonymous sources inside the White House familiar with this operation say that former Obama officials Ben Rhodes and Colin Kahl were the targets here. Rhodes and Kahl were, of course, essential in helping construct the terms of the JCPOA and negotiating the deal on behalf of the United States. And the idea was apparently to find incriminating information on them personally in order to discredit the nuclear deal in general, which means that Trump has really been looking for any and all reason, even personal reason, to justify walking away from this deal.
Well, that's still exactly what Trump is expected to do in less than 1 week. Former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who recently joined Trump's legal team, has just said the president is very committed to a regime change in Iran, which is his way of saying, expect us to nix the deal and resume pre-2015 sanctions.
Right, I mean, that's definitely what everyone is certainly bracing for, that and the domino effect that would probably follow, because Iran has already said that if the U.S. does pull out, they'll pull out too, meaning that Europe and all the other signees on the deal will be left pretty divided with no coordinated backup plan. And that's pretty much why France, the Secretary General of the United Nations, former Israeli leaders, and so many others say that this could very well be leading us all to war. But honestly, that's possibly exactly what Israel may want out of this. Because take a look now at what Prime Minister Netanyahu's just said about this.
אנחנו נחושים לבלום את התוקפנות האיראנית נגדנו באיבה, גם אם הדבר יהיה כרוך במאבק. עדיף עכשיו מאשר אחר כך. אומות שלא היו מוכנות לפעול בזמן נגד תוקפנות רצחנית נגדן, שילמו אחר כך מחירים כבדים בהרבה. איננו רוצים בהסלמה, אבל אנחנו ערוכים לכל תרחיש.
Well, Netanyahu is certainly pressing Trump hard to nix the deal. His primetime presentation on Iran's secret intel from its 2003 nuclear project is still fresh on everyone's mind. But even getting back to the operation to discredit these Obama officials, I understand that came together shortly after President Trump visited Israel back in May. And many say that timing is no mere coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd have to agree there. And let's be clear about something. You know, nobody ever said politics was going to be a clean game, but digging up personal skeletons on rows and column in order to discredit the political effectiveness of the deal, that's not just an ugly tactic. That's one I'm not even sure makes total sense. I mean, look, I'm sure that this intel was looking for any and all things to link these guys personally to Iran, and if they did, that would obviously be huge and game-changing. But barring any shocking discoveries like that, the question is, what kind of dirt would Trump really be hoping to find here to justify breaking this deal? Because he would need to be so globally significant as to justify doing what many see would be leading us to a likely path to war.
Well, whether the president has that kind of proof or not, most are bracing for him to walk away from the deal on May 12th. But for now, we're just going to have to wait and see. Thanks for joining us, Brett.
Sure.
All right, now get this. Israel's Ministerial Legislation Committee has just approved the controversial override bill. This bill would allow the Knesset to repass laws that have already been struck down by the Supreme Court. It still has to go through a series of votes and amendments before becoming law, but joining us with more details is expert on Israeli constitutional law, attorney Adir Binyamini, and legal advisor to the Israeli Movement for Governability and Democracy, attorney Simcha Rothman. Thank you both for joining us.
Good.
So let's talk about ways in which this bill could be abused by any coalition in power. What are some of the issues with this bill, and what are some of the positives?
Well, as we all know, no man's life, liberty, or property is safe while the legislature is in session. That's a quote from Mark Twain, and we need the Supreme Court to be to make those checks and balances for so no law that is violating human rights will get approved, or at least you have the chance to attack that law by making a motion to the Supreme Court.
The override mechanism is basically, it's actually not needed because the Supreme Court in Israel, unlike the US or other places, has no authority to begin with to cancel Knesset laws. That's an authority the court took upon himself without any basis. We don't have a constitution in Israel. The court took it upon himself to decide what law is good, what law is bad, what constitutes a breach of the basic law, which is not a constitution. So what the Knesset is trying to do now, long overdue, is to take away the power was taken away from it by the Supreme Court. And we hear a lot of frightening, what will happen? The Knesset will cancel the human rights. The Knesset can cancel the basic laws today by a majority of 2-1. So if the Knesset does not cancel the basic laws, it means that the Knesset wants to safeguard human rights in Israel, but it doesn't think that the Supreme Court has to have the last and final word on how is the best way to do so.
But there are still many people, especially from the Kulanu party, who are saying that this ultimately will weaken the rule of the law if the bill is indeed passed, which obviously there are still amendments and changes that need to be made. So first, let's talk about what some of those changes are before this bill would be passed.
Well, I hope that the current situation, the current legal situation will stay because not like Mr. Simchon here, I don't trust the rationality of the parliament. I mean, also, you see what happened today in Turkey. I mean, we have a lot of examples in history where there wasn't any Supreme Court to block a lot of laws that took away human rights. And therefore, we need the current situation to stay as it is in a lot of democracies.
Well, why is this change trying to be made right now?
The Supreme Court just in 2017 canceled 5 Knesset laws, again, without any basic law on constitution. So the Supreme Court.
What were some of those laws?
Two of them were the laws about drafting ultra-Orthodox to the army. A law that was supposed to give a privilege to a minority, and the Supreme Court took it away. So even the notion that the Supreme Court safeguards the minorities, it's not true. From the laws that the Supreme Court canceled based on equality, based on the defense of minorities, 83% of those laws were laws that defending minorities, laws that giving privilege to minorities. It's like that the court will cancel affirmative action laws on base of equality.
What is your take on this?
Well, I think that equality is much more important than all those values that Mr. Simchon is talking about. I mean, why should one civilian go and make army service and another one will not do it? So, I mean, that particular law was, in my eyes, defending equality and not...
Again, it's a minority that was given privilege by the majority.
I mean, this is just one. I don't want to get into the specifics of that law, but I do think that it's kind of important to talk about where this would lead the future of the Israeli political system and obviously the coalition system. What kind of impact would the Knesset having this ability have on the future of the Supreme Court and its power within the state?
I believe that. A minority can also be a tyrant, just like one person can be a tyrant. I mean, a lot of people, that a group of people can also be a tyrant. I mean, democracy is built about the fact that there are elections and the minority today can be the majority of tomorrow. So you don't want to give the Knesset the power to make laws that is irreversible for the other side of the political side of
any law is reversible. Any law can be cancelled.
But
the
you can make
afterwards.
The damages that you can't fix later.
But the fact is that there is no other democracy in the world, no other, that a self-perpetuating court, self-perpetuating judiciary cancel. It's not self-perpetuating because they are appointed by elected officials. Here we don't elect and not choose our judges the way it happens in other countries. It's self-perpetuating court, unelected, and cancel Knesset laws without any constitution, without any demand for legal standing. Anyone can go to Supreme Court. Israel is extremely unique, and I think this law is one small step to make us a democracy.
All right, well, obviously this is a very controversial bill, and it hasn't yet been passed, but we are going to have to wait and see what happens. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, following a strange turn of events, a 20-year-old Israeli computer genius is now facing criminal charges after hacking into Israel's cyber defense system from his home computer. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more. Now, Aaron, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Let's just begin with what?
So you said it right. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I have no idea how this happened. So that's actually probably a good thing for me personally. But I do know that this story is like straight out of Live Free or Die Hard. Okay, we're talking about 20-year-old computer genius, known in this case only as Sergeant D under the pseudonym. Basically hacked into the IDF central computing system just to show holes in Israel's security.
Well, I mean, I think this is both impressive and obviously scary, but why didn't he just turn in his report of these holes to his commanders in the IDF? So
that's actually the interesting thing, is he did. Reportedly he did, and that's actually part of the reason that he's getting off on a much lighter sentence. There's part of this plea bargain that he's taken, which he's getting off a lot lighter. And that's it. He told, apparently while he was still in the military, he told his superiors multiple times that there were major holes in Israel's cybersecurity, and they didn't believe him because of his rank.
So, I mean, I guess you could say at the end of the day, what he was doing was something that was ultimately going to be positive for Israel.
So that's it. Eventually, they took his word for it. They took his word for it, and so he pled guilty to the charges, but they took his word that he did it only to prove a point, just to highlight
He didn't do anything
issues.
In the system that was...
Didn't do anything once he got in, but he did from his home terminal computer as a civilian, by himself, he hacked into Israel's system.
I think there are going to be a lot of tech companies that want to hire this guy, but obviously we're going to have to wait and see what happens to him in the criminal court here.
Yeah.
Wow, I almost lost my voice there. All right, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tasha.
All right, Israelis all over the country got a very historic treat this weekend, a front row seat to the first 3 days of the Giro De-Italia. This is one of the world's biggest cycling events of the year, and it's second only to the Tour de France. Athletes from all over the world came to both compete and to cheer for their favorite cyclers here, but sadly, the race is finishing up its third day of cycling in Israel today before it heads back to Europe for another 18 days of cycling. The festivities kicked off on Friday in Jerusalem for time trials. Defending Giro De-Italian champ Tom Dumoulin nabbed the top spot, crushing the 9.7-kilometer course through the city at 12 minutes and 2 seconds. The winner of the Tour de France, Chris Froome, was expected to lead the pack, but after having a bad wipeout during a practice run earlier, he finished in only 21st place. Well, Jerusalem was just the first leg of the most complicated and expensive sporting event in Israeli history. Yesterday, things stepped up a notch for a massive 167-kilometer race beginning in Haifa and ending all the way in Tel Aviv. Tens of thousands of Israelis came all over the country to witness history as cyclers zipped down the highways and through blocked-off city streets. For people here, seeing such an event come together was an immeasurable gift of pride at a time when the country is steeped in both political and existential darkness. Many had never even heard of the Giro d'Italia to begin with, but when they saw the race with their own eyes, they felt the mess of the political atmosphere momentarily lift. Elia Vivani was the winner of the Haifa-Tel Aviv leg of the race. The Israeli racers also placed impressively. Israel's team nabbed the 12th, 35th, and 122nd slot in the race. One of Israel's racers is an athlete named Awet Gebremedhin, an Eritrean refugee who fled to Sweden as an asylum seeker. Eritrean asylum seekers here in Tel Aviv rode their bikes to the finish line so that they could cheer him on. And right now the race continues in the south, where racers are pedaling a whopping 226 kilometers from Beersheba all the way down to Eilat. This has been one heck of an experience, one that Israelis are proud to have witnessed up close. That was quite the sight to see here in Tel Aviv. All right, we may live in a global economy these days, but things do get lost in translation all the time. And that's where Verbit, a powerful new transcription tool, comes in. Here with more is the CEO, Tom Livne. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so what exactly do you do?
We are AI-powered transcription services at scale. And in media, you have this captioning, so this is what we do.
Interesting. And what languages are you dealing with here?
Mostly English, but we do support, I would call it, tier 1 languages, like Spanish, Russian, also Hebrew.
Interesting. So, I mean, is this for companies specifically, or for people who are just using online tools and want everything to be, automatically translated? I know I personally deal with this issue a lot, living in Israel and having a different first language than Hebrew. Tell us.
Yeah, so it's B2B mainly. So this market is really fragmented. You have education, you have legal, you have finance, you have media. So we sell for those kinds of businesses, less for the individual, for the long term.
Interesting. So we're talking also within a company, so offices in different parts of the world that are dealing with each other and need that direct translation per se?
So anyone that have this kind of problem and they want to outsource it instead of doing it in-house, we are the perfect solution for them.
Where is Verbit available right now for those who are interested in learning more about what you do?
You can reach us online, and I would love to talk with you and show you our solution.
Yeah, and translate for you. All right, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, now for anyone who has a pregnant loved one, you already know that getting an ultrasound scan to see the unborn child isn't just important for doctors, it's also pretty important for the family too. The thing is, getting an ultrasound takes time, and sometimes it can even be expensive, and that's why you're probably going to flip out over this news. An Israeli startup is developing a device that works with your smartphone and lets you do an ultrasound whenever and wherever you want. The idea sounds almost too good to be true, but the technology is already in the finishing stages. Expecting mothers would be able to simply put a device on their stomach where the fetus is, which then connects to any smartphone and lets you perform an ultrasound right then and there. The scans could even be theoretically sent automatically to your physician just to make sure everything's safe and sound. To be clear, the minds behind the tech say this isn't meant to diagnose any defects or even pregnancy measurements. The idea is more to give mothers a little release from the anxiety of waiting to see their unborn child, and also to let them get a scan quickly to their doctors just in case it feels like something's wrong. Israeli women typically do 6 to 8 ultrasounds total throughout their 9 months of pregnancy, but each device, retailed at less than $200, would be good for up to 25 ultrasounds apiece. The creators at Pulse and More Limited say they've already conducted successful human trials in the US. All that's left is a few more tests and then the final stamp of approval from Israel's health ministry. After that, this baby is ready to hit stores where thousands of mothers-to-be will undoubtedly be lining up to buy. Archaeologists have just found an ancient coin in central Israel dating all the way back to the year 132 CE. Though it's small, big things often come in tiny packages, and historically that's the case here. It turns out this coin is actually from the Bar Kokhba revolt, where the Jewish people attempted to rebel against their Roman occupiers. But it's not just the thousands-year-old bronze coin itself that's a discovery here, but also where it was found. Historians have long believed that the ancient revolt led by Simon Bar Kokhba was centered completely in Jerusalem. But the discovery of this coin over 40 kilometers to the northwest, just outside of the modern-day city of Modi'in, now suggests otherwise. The coin is adorned with the symbol of a 7-branch date tree and bears the name of the rebel Shimon. The other side reads, "For the freedom of Jerusalem." Other artifacts recovered at the dig site were some potsherds and shards of glass, suggesting that rebels or supporters of the rebellion lived far outside the city as well. The Bar Kokhba revolt, whose legacy was just celebrated a few days ago in the Lag BaOmer holiday, was the final stand of Jewish rebels against the Romans. It lasted 3.5 years and drew thousands of Roman troops from the legion to ultimately crush it. This coin may actually be among the very last currencies Jews ever minted for themselves, until some 1800 years later when the modern state of Israel was fully reborn. So don't underestimate an artifact by its size. When it comes to history, size doesn't always matter. All right, get ready everyone, because it's just been reported that Latin pop superstar Shakira is heading to the Holy Land. And this time, it's not just for a sit-down with the Israeli president. ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh has all of the details.
Thanks, Natasha. Yes, Saturday night it was reported that the Colombian-born singer Shakira, I don't say it like you do with the accent, will be playing her first ever concert in Israel this summer at Parque Yocon on July 9th.
Well, this is definitely exciting, but from what I understand, there may be a chance she'll cancel the event altogether, right?
There's always a chance. We can't be 100% sure, of course, even though many have been doubting her actual appearance and expected cancellations due to predicted pressure from the BDS movement. It's important to note that the 41-year-old singer has been to the Holy Land before. While she's never played in Israel, she did participate in Shimon Peres's 2011 presidential conference, so it's safe to say there's a high chance she will not cancel.
Well, when she was here in Israel, she actually went ahead and visited 2 schools promoting coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians in Jerusalem. But, you know, there have been a lot of reports in the past of her making anti-Semitic comments that may have to do with stereotypes related to her identity, since her father is actually of Lebanese descent. But all of those reports have since been disproven from what I can tell.
Yes, from what we read, they have been disproven. Certainly, she seems to be enjoying Israel. She seemed to enjoy it back in 2011. She said, "I'm happy to be in Israel, the land which has been the mother of cultures and spirituality for so long." She also had been quoted saying, the most crucial decision we can make for a better tomorrow is how we raise and educate our children. So she seems to care about the future of Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Well, Shakira is a huge star all over the world, which makes her obviously even a bigger role model to the Latino community. So it will definitely be interesting to see how her performance here in Israel has an impact on what her fans think about Israel and the Jewish world, even though music obviously isn't supposed to be political, of course.
Exactly. So I guess all we can hope for is that she doesn't let the public pressures influence her decision to perform here, and hopefully we'll get a front row seat. I don't know.
I know. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Thanks for joining us, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Samru Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Latin pop star Shakira is scheduled to perform in Israel this summer, and in honor of her incredible dance moves, today's word is motnaim, or hips in Hebrew. We already know that Shakira's motnaim don't lie, but honestly, neither do our motnaim when we start dancing to her music, of course. It's important to sway your motnaim once in a while. I mean, it's good exercise and a lot of fun, and Shakira has certainly helped us understand the importance of voluptuous motnaim. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. You can expect partly cloudy skies and a rise in temperatures to a comfortable low of 68 or 20 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow, temperatures are expected to drop as local showers and thunderstorms collect overhead. The high should sit around 76 or 24 degrees Celsius. All right. That's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.62 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.